Everyone see me okay? Great. Good afternoon and welcome everyone. If you're just now hopping in on the call, feel free to drop your name, your class year, and where you're joining us from in the chat. Thank you for joining Get LinkedIn or Get Left Out webinar. I am Rachel Andrews and I am the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement. And today our host joining us is Associate Director of Career Services at the Love School of Business, Danielle Galinsky. Be sure to register for our next webinar, COVID-19, the investment world is, with Associate Professor of Finance, Chris Harris. As a reminder, please keep your mic on mute throughout the webinar and direct any questions you have to the chat box. This is a really engaged series, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. We will make sure to get to each and every one. Again, we appreciate anyone who submitted a question beforehand. This webinar will be available on demand within 1 week, along with all of our past professional development webinars. And our office would like to send a huge thanks to Danielle for leading us today. Danielle, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. Hi, everybody. It's such a pleasure to meet you all. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. I'm currently located on Elon's campus right now. I am in my office, and it is a true blessing to be here right now. Of course, socially distancing and whatnot. I hope you're all doing well and staying healthy during this time. So as my role as a career advisor, I absolutely love talking about presentations and giving workshops. So and one of those things I actually always end up talking about is that of LinkedIn to our student population here. So my primary role on campus as a career advisor is working with students and supporting them throughout their professional journey. And I absolutely love the work that I do and working with all the students every single day. And I remember when I first started at Elon almost 6 years ago, there was this new technology-ish platform called LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, goodness gracious, what is this? It's another form of social media. I don't know if I really want to do this right now. It's just something extra to do. But I will honestly say that over time, as my colleagues began to share with me all the great information that LinkedIn had to offer, I really began to enjoy it and take advantage of all the great information that LinkedIn provides. So my hope today for you all, no matter where you are at in your LinkedIn journey, I hope that you're able to take away some new information from our session today. We're going to have a really fun, I hope, interactive, and also really a fast conversation today. And knowing that this is not the end all be all, this might be the starting point for some of you. This might be a refresher, and that's okay. And so I do hope that you're able to walk away with some new learnings. And I know when you registered, you were able to provide an opportunity for questions. And so my hope is to attend to some of those questions throughout my dialogue today. But if for whatever reason I'm not able to get to it, if we run out of time, which I am expecting to happen, you are welcome to interact with me separately, and I would love to help you along the way with your professional journey. So there we go. Wonderful. So I really truly do believe that LinkedIn is a resource for absolutely everyone. And so no matter where you're at in your professional journey, whether you're a 2020 grad or an older alum, LinkedIn can certainly be a resource and a tool for you. I don't want it to be something that you don't want to do, but I do hope that if I can share with you some resources and how to take advantage of this awesome platform, that it might be something that you're willing and eager and excited to explore. The opportunities are literally endless. So whether you're on the job hunt, a career change, or expecting a career change in the future, LinkedIn is for you. And even if it's a tool that you're not really looking to connect with other people, there's so much more learning that can also happen on LinkedIn as well. And I'll be spending some time later in the presentation talking about all those resources. And additionally, even if you're not interested in connecting with people or learning from people, people might be interested in learning about you, about your stories, about your background, and how you got to where you are today. So my role as working with undergraduate students is helping them to be successful throughout their own professional journey. And one thing that we always end up talking about is networking and building relationships, building that professional web with other people that are out there. And LinkedIn, because it's such a great tool, is one of the biggest things that I provide to the students when I work with them. So even if you're not interested in maybe connecting with people, I can imagine that a lot of our students all over the place would be interested in connecting with you and learning from you. So let's see here. So here's a brief overview about what to expect today during our 1 hour session. We will be starting with a very brief, low stakes, low stress activity. So get your cell phones ready to engage with that. Just reviewing a few fast facts and fun stats about LinkedIn, going over a really brief overview of LinkedIn features, and then we'll be talking about professional branding, LinkedIn learning, and then hopefully saving some time at the end for some questions. And as Rachel mentioned, feel free to provide some questions along the way in the chat feature down below. And I'll be pausing every now and again to attend to those, but you can also save them until the end as well too. All right, so to kind of get you started, I might call this a LinkedIn session 102. My colleague Ross Wade, about a year ago or so, provided a fantastic LinkedIn webinar. I would call it maybe a LinkedIn 101 to the alumni population. And so this one is already saved on the website that Rachel mentioned earlier today. So if you are really beginning from scratch and don't know too much about LinkedIn right now, that's okay. The information today will still be helpful and will still be important to learn. But if you would like to get maybe a beginning start, this webinar will be very, very helpful for you as he really goes into detail about talking about how to build a profile, how to connect with people, and really how to network. So knowing that we now have 2 resources on LinkedIn for you all. Alrighty, so here's our first interaction here. So I'm curious to know, for those that are here, how often do you use LinkedIn today? So the easiest way to do this is to take out your phone, open up the photo feature, and hover that photo over the QR code, that little square in the top left-hand corner. It's going to pull up a website, and it will allow you to interact with this platform. I believe if I did it correctly, you should also be able to answer this question multiple times. So feel free, there we go, take a couple seconds and fill this out, just so I can kind of see who's here in the room. All right, we got some users. Awesome. Beautiful. Okay, so I would say overall, for the most part, you all are using it daily, which is very great. And not too many people find it fun, and that's okay. But it's great to see that most of you here are using it and you know, interacting with it on a daily basis. That's awesome. Okay, that's helpful for me to know. And our next one, hopefully here, there we go. So this is going to be kind of a word cloud, same concept with the QR code. So one word that you would use to describe your thoughts on LinkedIn is, there's no right or wrong answer here, but just kind of getting a feel, layout for the land here. Okay. There's no right or wrong answers. Okay. I hope. Okay, so overwhelming right now. I hope that after our time today, it won't be as overwhelming when you start to realize how kind of easy it can be to navigate. Awesome. You're all crushing it. Okay, very, very helpful. Thank you so much. I think that's just always good for me to kind of know how you all feel. Beautiful. Moving right along. So to kind of set the stage a little bit, I always think it's helpful to provide some stats and figures and just a bit of a background about this platform that we'll be spending the next hour together talking about. And so I'm not going to necessarily read everything that's here on the screen, but I certainly think it is interesting to talk about. Knowing that there's 700 million registered users in over 200 countries and territories, and that Americans, 30% of Americans are using LinkedIn. I think something that's also a really unique note here is that most people are only spending about 17 minutes per month on LinkedIn. So it really is not a huge investment. And knowing that, of course, there's going to be people who aren't really utilizing it very often, people that are absolutely using it as well, too. I would say that people that are definitely on LinkedIn are recruiters, staffing agencies, hiring managers, and whatnot, because people are getting jobs, building connections, and getting opportunities professionally through LinkedIn. 90% of recruiters are on it. And so if you are currently or looking to or will foresee looking at a new career in the future, being on LinkedIn is definitely the place to be because it's where the hiring is happening for sure. Hire is made every 10 seconds. My goodness, that's a lot. Knowing that companies are also on LinkedIn as well, and that it's responsible for 80% of B2B leads from social media. It's huge. And knowing that although most of you are probably using the free version of LinkedIn, which I do recommend for the majority of the people that I interact with, and I will be spending some time later today talking about LinkedIn Premium, there are also some tiered structures of if you wanted to, you could certainly use it, but knowing that who's really paying for LinkedIn are hiring managers, decision makers, and staffing agencies. And all this is really, I think, really fascinating to see. So there's your overview. So now we're going to head over to LinkedIn, and I'm just going to show you a few basic features. And again, I'm not going to be spending a lot of time on these because Ross did that in the first session. But what I will be reviewing will be kind of led by the questions that you all provided during the registration process. But before I do get there, I do want to make a quick note about Lifelong Elon. So some of you may have learned about this webinar through Lifelong Elon, which is amazing. Or some of you may have learned about this platform through another medium, which is great as well too. And knowing that if you are on Lifelong Elon, which is a wonderful platform, it's a professional development connector tool. It has similar features to LinkedIn, but the unique thing about this is that it's specifically designed and tailored for the Elon community. So you can find connections, mentorships, and then even find job opportunities as well too that are a little bit more advanced, maybe 2 or more years out of experience. So the nice thing is that if you are on Lifelong Elon, you can sync it up to your LinkedIn profile. So if you're making updates on LinkedIn, it will kind of transfer right over and sync up to your Lifelong Elon account, which makes it really, really easy to use. I just wanted to share that with you. So next we're going to head over just briefly to LinkedIn. Okay, welcome. That was easy. So a couple different features here. This is going to be your wall, I might call it, and where you can kind of see all the different connections that you currently do have and see all the information that those individuals or companies or groups are posting. So I do recommend that for the most part, you are connecting with people that you know or people that you want to know or people that are within your professional kind of network or people that are in your network that you want to learn from. So I would not recommend just connecting and accepting connection requests from any Joe Schmo because they will be able to see your information and then you'll be able to see their information. But you really just want to see information that's relevant for you. So whether it's a line of work that you're currently in right now or lines of work that you are interested in maybe getting into down the road, whether it's right away or years down the road. So you want to be kind of specific about who you're connecting with and just kind of be mindful of that. So the first thing here is I'll actually just pull up my profile. Is you have an about section. So this about section is an opportunity for you to provide your hello and your welcome. So it's really, I do recommend that most individuals have an about section because it's your opportunity to introduce yourself to the outside world. And you can tell me who you are today, maybe a little bit about your past, and then also talking about your future, especially if you are currently on the job search as well too. So it's something interactive. It's something that can be a little bit colorful. It can be a bit of a story, as I've kind of highlighted here. There is a character limit. You only have about 2,000 characters, I believe it is, so you can't write a whole novel, but it is something that could really set the stage for your audience about who you are as an individual and as a professional. And it's your opportunity to bring yourself to life. And if you're just getting started with this about section, I would certainly recommend taking a look at the about sections of those that you're automatically connected with and see what kind of information that they have. That's something that I've definitely taken advantage of is to look at the people that are in my network, in my bubble here within career services from other schools outside of Elon, and just seeing what kind of information they have provided. And then taking little nuggets of information and then tailoring it to fit myself. So I do hope that having about section is something that would be very, very helpful. And it's something that the outside world really wants to read about. The nice thing about LinkedIn is that you do have the opportunity to be a little bit colorful and interactive. Beyond a resume, the nice thing about LinkedIn also is that you have a headshot, which is really, really nice. And it's really helpful, especially if you are to meet up with someone, maybe for a cup of coffee, or as an interaction. You can actually kind of take a quick glimpse about who that person might be, what they might look like. So you know when you walk into that coffee shop or into that Panera Bread, let's say, that you know exactly who you might be kind of looking out for. I know I've done that multiple times. It definitely helps. And then you have some background art as well too, if you so choose. Again, this is another opportunity for you to provide some colorful interactions and then also a bit of maybe your brand or whatnot. This photo for me comes from a beautiful mosaic when I was up in Philadelphia with a group of Elon students a handful of years ago during an alternative spring break. And I remember seeing this beautiful mosaic and saying, wow, that's really beautiful. I think that would look really nice on my background photo for LinkedIn. And so it could be whatever you want. It could be a part of your brand. It could be something, a photo that brings you happiness or joy or something that you enjoy looking at. But I would recommend having something there to make it a little bit different than everyone else's that's out there. And Google also has a ton of other photos as well too that you could also use as default. Third here is the content. So a couple questions that came in through the registration is kind of what information is expected on my experience section, how much information should I put there, and what really makes sense. So this, I would say LinkedIn is an extension of a resume. Resumes are typically structured by 1 or 2 pages, depending on the audience that or the industry that you're in, or it could even be longer if you're creating a CV. The nice thing about LinkedIn is, as far as I'm aware, you can go infinitely with the amount of information that you want to provide, which is really wonderful. But yet again, you don't want to provide too much information where it's just a little bit too overwhelming for someone to look at. So I want a lot of the information to be relevant, but I also don't want it to be too much information where it's just a little bit too overwhelming. The nice thing about LinkedIn is that you do have the opportunity to upload artifacts or examples of work that you've done, which I think is really handy, so that especially if you are on a job search or starting to look at a career change, you can provide artifacts or multimedia and examples of the work that you've done. So if employers or recruiters are finding your profile, then you've already provided them with some information and the quality of the work that you can produce, which is awesome. So LinkedIn can really truly be a one-stop shop for you. And then thirdly is this search bar up top here. This is where there is just infinite amount of opportunity to really take advantage of this tool. You can plug in people's names up here, companies up here. You can plug in Elon University up here, which is what we'll do in just a brief minute. And then from that, a scavenger hunt will kind of begin where you really are able to uncover so much valuable insight and information. Pretty much every company today is on LinkedIn. And if you are in charge of a company or a founder of a company, you should be on LinkedIn because that's where the people are going and they want to get the information. So let's just kind of play around here, for example, with Elon University. And I show this to students every single day whenever we do a LinkedIn overview or a tutorial. You definitely want to connect with Elon University so that you can begin to see posts that the university is posting or publishing out. You can look at jobs that are on here, which is really handy. But I also really find that this alumni feature, AKA all of you, to be very, very handy. So as I mentioned earlier, although you may not desire to connect with people right now, other people are most likely trying and desiring to connect with you. So this is one of the features that I highlight to students, and this is where the connections and that networking can truly begin to happen. So using this alumni feature is where you can really start to see what all the Elon University alumni are up to. You guys are all doing wonderful and incredible things. And I appreciate every single one of you. My job as a career advisor is to help our undergrads get connected. And I know that they are connecting with many of you. So thank you for a brief pause here for allowing yourselves to share your insights, your background, and your professional journey with our students so they can learn from you. I appreciate it. So as you can see here, you can see what students are doing, what companies they're working for, which is kind of handy. But then over here, you can also see what they're doing or what they've studied. It really is a beautiful feature. And then what you can do even more so is if you realize, okay, I'm really interested in, let's see here, working for Cisco, just a random example, you can see where those Cisco alumni are located. And then even if you scroll below here, you can see who those individuals are. And I will be spending some time in a couple slides and talk about how to connect with these individuals and what you can do about this information. Okay, so I'm gonna take a pause there. That was my overview of LinkedIn profiling. So if you have any questions, please add those into the chat box and raise those to me now.
Absolutely. Danielle, you had a question from Coral from Austin, Texas. She asked, do you think the artifacts are good to add under the coursework as well, for example, from your graduate school portfolio?
Absolutely. I think it's really wonderful, and because it can also provide additional content about the work that you've done. So on my profile, for example, here, my graduate school, I've provided a quick artifact of kind of my final case assignment that I've done. And I think it's great. I was really proud of the work that I did when I was in graduate school, and I would even say for undergrads as well. You are welcome to put any sort of artifacts and embed that within your education experience. Now, I don't know if there's a maximum amount of files that you can upload, but I would definitely provide the select few that are really the highlights of your time in your education. Great question. Any other questions, Rachel?
Not at this time. I think you can keep moving.
Okay. Can you see my slide? My PowerPoint? Cool. Okay, wonderful. So now we're going to head a little bit over into general LinkedIn tips. So as I mentioned earlier, my colleague Ross Wade did a fantastic webinar, and that kind of did an overview about LinkedIn or so, and really kind of emphasize that it's really important to ensure that your profile is in line with your audience. And I cannot agree with him more. So it really is important, and these are just some basic tips that I would recommend to really anyone, and definitely the students that I work with, but knowing that this LinkedIn resource, it has to go both ways. It's more about than just what someone else can do for me, but what also can I do for that individual as well. So really being mindful, and you all know networking, it's not just a one-way street. So LinkedIn is not a one-way street as well too. After a connection is made, after education happens and learning happens, see what kind of information you might be able to provide to that other individual as well. Because most likely there might be some really important content there that the two of you could maybe further collaborate on. One big tip is that it's really important to be consistent when using LinkedIn. So if you are an owner of a business, it's important to post. It's important to provide content to your audience, to your followers. Anyone can follow your organization. So it's important to publish and post and push out relevant content, articles, blogs, and start to have dialogues and conversation with the rest of the LinkedIn community, I might say. So I know, for example, one of my colleagues, we have a staff meeting every Tuesday at 8:30. So typically that individual would come a little bit early into the staff meeting and would kind of sit down, and that's the time that they would dedicate before the staff meeting began to look at their LinkedIn profile, to review any notifications or updates, or respond to any messages. Now, again, depending on where you're at in your stage of life, if you're actively job searching or looking for a career change, being more present on LinkedIn is really important. So it might take a couple times a week. I'm not expecting hours upon hours, but definitely some time and some consistency. Set up a schedule for yourself, whether it's a half hour here and a half hour there. but allow yourself the opportunity to be consistent with it so that you're kind of maintaining and staying on top of all the interactions that are happening. I would hate for a great connection to happen and then a whole week goes by where there's no follow-up or conversation made. So really, truly be mindful. And the nice thing about LinkedIn also is that there's a whole bunch of privacy and settings in regards to like the profile side. So you can actually even have, if you receive a message, that message can be pushed to your email, which you might be more on a daily basis. So it really kind of does the work for you to alert you of that information, which is awesome. So for business, it's recommended to post at least something twice a week, but no more than 5 times a week, because then it gets a little bit too watered down, gets a little bit too muddled down, and it kind of loses its impact. But you don't want to post more than once a day. So these are just some best practices. It's okay to reshare content to make it interesting, but provide some kind of calls to action. So make it interactive. And those are really how the profiles that are standalones, the ones that are the best ones, the all-stars, I might say, the ones who are all-stars are the ones that are really interacting, that are having conversations, that are responding to messages, and also kind of providing new content as well. And there's a whole bunch of other platforms out there that you could use, some of them probably even for free, where you could kind of sit down in a batch and create your content, and then a system could send it out on your behalf, so you don't have to do it all the time. You want to make it interesting as well for yourself, for your company, for your business, and then also for your own networking tool as well. And if you're just simply a profile on LinkedIn, you have your own account, it is important to maintain an active profile, so at least engaging with the system a few times a week. Some weeks might be better than others, but you certainly don't want to go on for a very long time without interacting with it. LinkedIn is definitely not a platform that you can set and forget and expect magical things to happen. It definitely takes some output, it definitely takes some time and massaging along the way. Knowing that when you're connecting with people, that they're not just a profile and something that you can see on a computer screen. These are human beings, and these are relationships. So each relationship should be taken with care, and knowing that each relationship is an investment. So to be responsible, to be responsive, to be helpful and kind, knowing that, of course, LinkedIn, you could grow infinite amount of connections. I know right now I have 500 plus connections, which is a lot of people. I've connected a lot with Elon students, with Elon colleagues, with professionals that I've met at networking events and whatnot. And I will tell you, I am not interacting with those 500 plus connections on a daily or even a monthly basis, but I am seeing what they're posting, providing a like or a comment or a response to a question that they provide, and really trying my best to support them along the way. And as I said earlier, make your profile fit. So regardless of what industry you're in or who you are as a professional, you want to try your best to make sure that you are filling your profile with relevant content. Especially if you are on a job search or in a career change, you want to also put the information that will be relevant for your future. So although you might be in one industry today, let's say marketing, but you really want to get into journalism, let's say, I see that all the time, you really want to provide kind of a nice balance between marketing language and then also some journalism language to find a nice relevance there. I'm just reviewing my notes to make sure I've done everything. But also knowing that the information that's out there, it's volunteered information. So people are volunteering by choice their profile. So knowing that the best thing that you can do is take advantage of it. And if there was, hopefully a person is posting something on their profile that they would be willing and open and comfortable talking about, because that's fair. So making sure that as you are posting information on your profile, that it's something that you would be willing to talk to with a complete stranger, potentially, or an Elon connection. Okay. I'm going to do a quick pause there, Rachel. Any questions so far?
I do not see any questions at this time, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box and I will prompt Danielle so that we can answer those questions. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. So now we're going to be spending just a little bit of time with tips to how to further maximize your profile. So I spent a little bit of time in showing you your profile, what basic features, how to connect with people. But now let's spend some time and talk about your own independent profile. So keep in mind that it's more than just having a profile. Although I've already said that, you have to build a presence. It's an interaction tool. And it's not something, as I said, that you can just kind of set, forget, and walk away. But knowing that if you are taking advantage of the full features of LinkedIn, a message that you interact with someone could turn into a phone call, and that phone call could turn into an opportunity. So I know I was speaking recently with a 2020 grad, Carson White, and although I never met him when he was a student here, my colleagues met with him and spoke very highly of him. He is actually going to be working for LinkedIn in a short couple of months as an incoming business leadership program. And right now he's kind of serving as a LinkedIn ambassador. And so we hopped on the phone last week, and he kind of shared with me his story. And he said that he was very intentional about the outreach that he had, and he had to initially kind of message some strangers. And many of our students, and I do that all the time. But then that message turns into a phone call, a quick conversation to learn more about the other individual, to see how you might find things in common. And then there's follow-up that comes from that. So thanking the other person, staying in touch with the other person, commenting on information that the person is providing. And then that comes to an opportunity. So Carson is just one example of a very successful Elon student who really took advantage of LinkedIn and is now will be working for LinkedIn as well too upon graduate, or he just graduated, which is really exciting. So there's so many stories like that I continue to hear from students, and it makes me really proud when I see that maybe in the beginning they were a little bit hesitant, just like I was, in doing something different, something new, maybe a little bit uncomfortable in connecting with complete strangers, but really seeing the output and the outcome of it. But knowing that outcome took time, it took reinforcement, consistency, patience, kindness, support. And so these things certainly do not happen overnight, nor are they expected to, but there's really great information out there. And I know that this could be something that could be potentially uncomfortable for some of you. It could be a little bit scary, fearful, but I think it's important to be mindful that that's exactly why this platform was designed, to get connected, to reach out to initial strangers, but then to turn into connections and maybe even future colleagues. And knowing that there's just so many great individuals out there that are willing to support. That's exactly why it was designed. And again, it's all volunteered information, so take advantage of it. Keeping the informations and the conversations that you're having alive. So to be intentional, again, having that structure, having that routine, set yourself up for success. And always, always, always being kind and thankful along the way. Even during a pandemic right now, LinkedIn is absolutely still a tool that can be taken advantage of. Conversations are still happening, hiring and interviews are still happening. And there's just, people are online now more than ever. And we continue to hear from our Elon alumni and our employers that they are still willing and wanting to talk with students. And they'd be willing and wanting to talk with you as well, if you're wanting to put yourself out there. And that can be a big step or a little step for some of you. And I get it. I didn't want to do it in the beginning either. But then once I kind of took those baby steps, I was really able to understand the true value of the platform, and I can enjoy it a little bit as well too. It's a fun little scavenger hunt. So when it comes to posting and interacting etiquette, there's definitely some things that you want to be mindful of. You want to provide comments. You want to be supportive of people that are out there, whether you know them or not. It's absolutely okay to disagree with information that's being shared, but it's important to be respectful. That's a non-negotiable in my eyes. You have to be respectful and kind and thoughtful for other human beings. So however you use LinkedIn, you just really want to make sure that it's something that you're happy to be associated with. Many employers today are looking for talent on LinkedIn, and it's quite easy to do a quick search on anyone's name today and to find the content that you're posting on, the blogs that you're submitting information to, or just the way that you're interacting with the platform. LinkedIn is a public platform, and I recommend that all individuals keep their profile public, not private, as it is a professional networking and branding tool. The other forms of social media, yes, might be a little bit more private as they might be more personal, but LinkedIn should be completely public in order for anyone to really be able to see. So you want to make sure that you'll make your grandparents happy when they see the information that you're posting on there. So just, if you ever have any doubts, take a deep breath, pause, reflect, maybe walk away from the computer. But it's okay to interact. It's okay to agree, to disagree, but please be respectful, kind, and courteous. Okay, quick pause there. Next, we're going to be heading into LinkedIn. Any questions come through so far?
Feel free again, if you have any questions, to either send them directly to me or put them in the chat, and I will let Danielle know if there are any more questions prompted. At this time, Danielle, we do not have any questions, so feel free to continue.
Okay, so another great feature, and this is a feature that I just recently, unfortunately, I might say, became aware of, is that of LinkedIn Learning. And so LinkedIn Learning is a fantastic extension of LinkedIn. Some of you might be familiar with the company Lynda, L-Y-N-D-A. LinkedIn Learning actually bought out lynda.com, I believe at least maybe a couple of years ago. And it truly is an opportunity for endless learning. So knowing that it's simply an extension, so if I'm going back here to my profile, you can see the LinkedIn Learning kind of tool up here. Now, if you are currently an Elon student, faculty member, or a staff member, LinkedIn Learning is a free resource that Elon does provide. And there is a bit of a kind of, you have to kind of sync up to LinkedIn Learning to link it back to your profile. But if you are not currently a staff member or a student or a faculty member, you might just have to check in with your employer on whether or not LinkedIn Learning is a resource and a tool and maybe a benefit that's provided. But if that's not an option, you can certainly purchase LinkedIn Learning as well for your own independent learnings and whatnot. So knowing that there's so much learning to happen, and I think it's kind of a really great tool. So you can see here kind of my dashboard. I've literally just begun to kind of take some of these LinkedIn learnings. I know I did Lynda a handful of years ago, but it's really great opportunity to learn as much as you can. And knowing that there's infinite amount of different topics, and whether it's related to your industry or not, maybe just something that you're interested in or curious about. One thing that I do every single day here as part of my role is I look at resumes and cover letters, and I support students throughout the interviewing search or the interviewing process. And so I've watched a handful of these LinkedIn Learning tools to make sure that the information that I'm providing to my students is still up to date and current. And these videos are very well produced, a lot of really great speakers, very well done. And the nice thing about these is that they kind of vary in regards to length. So some of these might be 20 minutes, or they might be more of a series of them. And when you complete a series or a session, you get a little congratulations award, but then you can also sync that back to your LinkedIn profile, which is really, really handy. So I've completed a couple of these LinkedIn learnings. And if you scroll down here, they're here underneath your licenses and certifications. So it's kind of an automatic add-on, which I think is really handy. And this will automatically go onto my wall that I've completed this system or the certification. And the people that I'm connected to can see that, they can like it, and they can say, good job, Danielle, that's great. So it's a really nice maybe accountability tool. And knowing that I kind of set up a weekly goal for myself to do at least 30 minutes every week on something new with LinkedIn Learning. And I already have met that and achieved it and went above and beyond, which is great. So knowing that LinkedIn Learning is a fantastic tool, I mean, there's so many great different e-resources that are out there, but this one is a newer one for me, and I still wanted to share that with everyone else. And here's even an example of a kind of a series. Of course, you know, this is a very relevant topic, unfortunately, for some of us here, but there's really a lot of great knowledge to happen. Okay, back to my presentation. Okay. We're doing okay with time. I'm surprising myself. So a couple questions from the registration that came through that I certainly would like to address. The first one, a couple of you all asked about LinkedIn Premium and whether or not it's something that's worthwhile to purchase. It's typically not recommended for undergraduate students or those just exiting schooling to be kind of buying into LinkedIn Premium. It can be it's an investment, that's for sure. But those who are or should be using LinkedIn Premium and those who are paying for LinkedIn is more that professional world, the recruiting world. Those are the industries that are really maximizing the LinkedIn Premium. And it's also an opportunity to create leads. And so when it comes to connecting with individuals, you might have seen when I was looking at the profile, you might see some first connections, second connections, and third connections. So that first connection is just an indication that you have connected with that individual, whether you sent them the request or they sent you the request and one party has accepted it. So that means that you're in each other's maybe networking bubble. You can see the information that they've posted. They can see the information that you've posted. And you can message them directly. If you're a second connection with someone, those are going to be people who are connected to your first connections. You can also send them a connection request as well. And if you want me to review that, I'm more than happy to just put that in the question feature. And then when they accept that request, that connection, then that person will turn from a second connection into a first connection. And then those third connections, those are people who are connected to your second connection. So it's a little bit further out. So the nice thing about LinkedIn Premium is that, especially if you are looking to integrate into communities or industries that are not necessarily where your main connections are, the LinkedIn Premium will allow you to get a little bit closer to people that are outside your initial bubble, I might say. And you can connect with as many people as you want. If you don't pay for LinkedIn, there's a certain amount and a certain way to connect with those third connections. And if the LinkedIn system, I know I've done this before, sees that you're trying to connect with too many people, it's going to kind of put you on pause for a little while. So just knowing that there's a couple different ways, couple different tiers, but I would say that the lowest tier I would say is about $30 a month. So, and many of you might even be provided opportunities for free LinkedIn trial membership. I know I get that alert all the time. So you are certainly welcome to take advantage of that, explore what it's all about. But for the most part, I'm not recommending the students that I work with to utilize LinkedIn Premium. Job searching and making connections. So this is a tool to build those relationships, to make those connections. And knowing that there's some etiquette, as I talked about earlier in that process, it's important to be professional, to be kind. And even if you're on the younger side of being an Elon alum and you might be connecting with other young alumni or older alumni, it really is still super important and it's essential to maintain a level of professionalism when you're interacting with them. No exceptions. And then another question was that of recommendations. So a recommendation is a really, really helpful tool where other people are able to add a small little snapshot about your work ethic and the work that you've done, maybe with them. And I would say that these recommendations are somewhat replacing a letter of recommendation that I think is kind of a little bit older now. A lot of people are providing those recommendations on LinkedIn, which is really, really handy. So you can ask those people that are in your network, maybe a current colleague or a supervisor that you've developed a really strong relationship with, to provide a recommendation on your profile. You can actually ask for it directly through LinkedIn as well too, which is really handy. And again, this is just a very short blurb about your quality of work, maybe your personality, your character style, and everyone can see that, which is really, really nice. So if you are looking to do a career change of any kind, then you can have maybe some current colleagues provide you recommendations. And then as you maybe make connections with that new company or with hiring managers or recruiters, they can already see a little bit more about your energy levels, your work ethic and whatnot, which I think is a very, very beneficial tool. And just to keep in mind that if you want other people to write you a recommendation, good practice is to also provide them one in return as well too. So just making sure, scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. And the nice thing is that you can also review that recommendation in advance before it goes public on your profile. And the best kind of recommendations out there are the ones that maybe you're able to give that individual some guidelines and maybe some ideas about what they could write about you, because you want to certainly provide a nice arrangement of languages and skills and highlights about the work that you've done. Okay, awesome. So that comes and concludes the presentation that I've prepared for you all. If I did not answer your question, if I don't answer your question, you are welcome to email me. I would love to have a conversation with you. And I would also love to connect with you. So feel free to connect with me there, and we can continue the conversation on LinkedIn as well. If you have any questions, feel free